بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. Continuing with the stories of the prophets, today inshallah we'll start with the stories of Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salatu wassalam. Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salatu wassalam was the first Rasul. There's a difference between Rasul and a Nabi. Adam alayhi salatu wassalam was the first Nabi. Nuh alayhi salatu wassalam was the first Rasul. Rasul means that prophet who got a new book, who got a new religion, who got the new teachings. Initially, when Adam alayhi salatu wassalam came, and then Idris alayhi salam, Shith alayhi salam, the prophets before Nuh alayhi salam, they were all Nabi. They were all continuing with the previous message. Nuh alayhi salatu wassalam was awwalur rusul, the first messenger that came with a new sharia, new religion. And the scholars mention that Nuh alayhi salatu wassalam came about 10 generations after Adam alayhi salatu wassalam. So, in other words, Adam alayhi salam was his 10th grandfather. And some other scholars mention that there were about 1,000 years in between Adam alayhi salam and Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He praises Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam with many qualities in Quran. For example, in one place Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّهُ كَانَ عَبْدًا شَكُورًا. The Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam was a servant who was very thankful, who was always thanking, shukr guzar. He was a very thanking person, a servant, meaning anytime he has received anything, he will always thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is a quality that we find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala really loves, this quality of shukr. How old was Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam? This is the interesting point. In Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions about his age, and He says, وَلَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا نُوحًا إِلَىٰ قَوْمِهِ فَلَبِثَ فِيهِمْ أَلْفَ سَنَةٍ إِلَّا 50 عَامًا. We sent Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam to his nation, and he remained amongst them for 1,000 years except 50. Meaning 950 years. Now there is difference of opinion amongst the scholars. What was his full age? Majority of the scholars, are of the opinion that his age was 1,050 years. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He's mentioning that he remained for 950 years was as a messenger inviting the people to the deen, to the oneness of Allah. So he remained total 1,050 years. He received his prophethood, his nubuwwah, at the age of 50. He received his nubuwwah at the age of 50. And then for 950 years, he kept on inviting them to the oneness of Allah, he giving them da'wah. And now he is 1,000 years of age. The last 50 years, and when he was 1,000 years old, that's when we'll learn about it, the flood came and everyone was drowned. So he remained, after that flood, he remained for 50 years until he passed away. So he remained total 1,050 years. Initial 50 years, that was before the nubuwwah. And then 950 years of the da'wah, of invitation, inviting others to the oneness of Allah, and then 50 more years after the flood. So total of 1,050 years he remained. And this was a common age in those days. About 1,000 years, as we learn about Adam alayhi salam, he was also 1,000 years old. Nuh alayhi salatu wassalam, he was known to be, he was in a hadith we find that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions about Nuh alayhi salam that he used to fast a lot. Sa'imud dahr is one of his qualities, that he was constantly fasting. You know, there are 3 different prophets about whom this quality is mentioned, that they used to fast a lot, constantly fasting. And out of these 3, Number one is Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam, who used to fast throughout the year. A hadith mentioned that except for those days that were prohibited, for example, like the Eid days, he would fast throughout the year, except the days that were not permissible to fast. And then second prophet that we find who used to fast a lot was Sayyidina Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam. And it is mentioned that he used to fast every second day. So half the year, every second day. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we find about him that he used to also fast every second day. And he used to say, I love this fasting of Dawood alayhi salam. And the scholars mention the reason for that, why every second day, is because when a person fasts continuously every single day, he gets into the habit of fasting. Throughout the day, he does not even feel hungry. So fasting he does not even feel it. When he fasts every other day, he's not making a habit of not eating during the day. So the fasting becomes more difficult and it becomes like a burden. So there's more reward in that fast. So a person who would fast continuously and a person who would fast every other day, the one who is fasting every other day is getting more reward because there's more difficulty. And al-ajru biqadr al-mashaqqa, this is the rule, that the reward is according to how much sacrifice and how much difficulty the person goes through. And then the third prophet that we find he used to fast a lot was Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, who used to fast. A hadith mentioned that he used to fast 3 days every month. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we find about him that he adopted these last two, Dawood alayhi salam's fast, and he would make sure that he would fast every 3 days in every month also, following the footstep of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. So there were two qualities so far that we talked about. One, Nuh alayhi salam was shakur, shukr guzar, thankful servant. Number two, we find that he had a quality of fasting abundantly, fasting constantly. And third quality we find about Nuh alayhi salam in the hadith is kana bakka'an. He used to cry a lot. While making dua, while doing the ibadah, in sajda, while praying, he used to cry a lot. And these are the three qualities that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala really loves from a person. And some scholars even mention that his name, Nuh, is driven from the word Noha, which means to cry a lot. Anyways, this is an opinion that his name Nuh is driven from Noha, which means to cry a lot, because Nuh alayhi salam used to cry a lot in du'as and during the worship. One of the main tasks of Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam during his time was converting the people, his nation, from idol worshipping to the oneness of Allah, to the worship of Allah alone. And idol worshipping had increased, as we talked about in the previous prophet, about Shith alayhi salam, Idris alayhi salam. Shaitan tricked the people at that time, and he told them that when a pious person dies from amongst you, make a picture of him and hang him. Hang that picture, so that you don't forget that pious person and that prophet that had passed away. You always remember him. And then the people liked this idea, and they made a picture and they hung that picture, and they would look at that picture and remember those prophets and those pious people. And eventually, from that picture, it became and it led to idol worshipping. And by Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam's time, idol worshipping was commonly everywhere. And Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam had to deal with those types of people who were mushrik, who were idol worshipping. And Quran mentions that there were many idols in the time of Nuh alayhi salam, and there were especially 5 main idols. They were like the leaders of those all the idols. And the names of those 5 idols are also mentioned in Quran. In Surah Nuh, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions about it. وَقَالُوا لَا تَذَرُنَّ آلِهَتَكُمْ وَلَا تَذَرُنَّ وَدًّا وَلَا سُوَاعًا وَلَا يَغُوثَ وَيَعُوقَ وَنَسْرًا. These were the 5 names of their 5 idols. Anyways, Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam kept on inviting them day and night. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions about Nuh alayhi salam's inviting the people in many places in Quran. In fact, there is a complete surah Nuh, in the 29th juz. In Tabarak, there is a surah Nuh. The whole surah is about the incident of Nuh alayhi salam, and it mainly talks about how he used to invite the people, the nation, to the oneness of Allah. And the surah starts with إِنَّا أَرْسَلْنَا نُوحًا إِلَىٰ قَوْمِهِ أَنْ أَنذِرْ قَوْمَكَ مِنْ قَبْلِ أَنْ يَأْتِيَهُمْ عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ. That we sent Nuh alayhi salam to his nation to warn his nation before the punishment would come to them. And Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam would go out and he would invite the people, and one of the things that he would invite and he would announce to the people was قَالَ يَا قَوْمِ إِنِّي لَكُمْ نَذِيرٌ مُبِينٌ. O my people, I am a clear warner to you people. I am a clear warner to you people. And what am I warning you about? أَنِ اعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَاتَّقُوهُ وَأَطِيعُونَ. Worship Allah. You people are worshipping the idols, now worship Allah alone. وَاتَّقُوهُ, and fear Allah. وَأَطِيعُونَ, and obey me. Follow Nuh alayhi salam, follow my teachings, but worship Allah. This is the gist of the message of all the Anbiya alayhi salatu wasalam. This is what they had come to this world for, to invite people to worship Allah alone. And we know Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam, he worked very hard. As one ayah, Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam himself is mentioning, قَالَ رَبِّي إِنِّي دَعَوْتُ قَوْمِي لَيْلًا وَنَهَارًا. O my Rabb, I have invited my nation day and night. Day and night. Not just, 8 to 5 or during the day time, this 6-hour job. No, this was his 24/7 job. Morning and night, day and night. All he was doing was inviting his nation to the oneness of Allah. And then Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam is now begging Allah, Ya Rabb, inni da'awtu qawmi laylan wa nahara, falam yazidhum du'ai illa firara. Oh my Rabb, I have invited them day and night, but my inviting them is only making them further away from me. They're not coming closer, they're not listening, they're just getting further away. The next ayah, Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam is complaining even more to Allah. He's saying, Ya Allah, inni kullama da'awtuhum litaghfira lahum ja'alu asabi'ahum fi adhanihim wastaghshaw thiyabahum wa asarru wastakbaru istikbara. That Ya Allah, whenever I invite them so that you can forgive them, this is why he's inviting. Ya Allah, every time I invite them so you can forgive them, they keep putting their fingers in their ears. Like they don't even want to listen. I can't even talk to them. They don't even listen. Nothing is even going to their ear. جَعَلُوا أَصَابِعَهُمْ فِي آذَانِهِمْ. They put their fingers in their ears. And number 2, وَاسْتَغْشَوْا ثِيَابَهُمْ. And sometimes they even cover their heads with a cloth. Like they don't even want to see. وَأَصَرُّوا وَاسْتَكْبَرُوا اسْتِكْبَارًا. And they insist that they do not want to listen, and they are very arrogant. So this is the plea, this is the begging of Nuh alayhi salam to Allah. Ya Allah, please help me. This is the situation with me and my people. Some hadith even mention that the nation of Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam, they had assigned their children, small children, and they would bring those children close to Nuh alayhi salam and point towards him that, see this man, make sure you don't listen to what he says and don't go close to him. So they themselves would not listen, and they had warned their children not to even go close to Nuh alayhi salam. Imagine Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam, with those types of people he had to live with, and he had to invite them to the oneness of Allah. If it was one of us, we tell someone not to do something wrong, we would tell them once, he does not listen. We would tell them twice, 3 times, and then we would give up. That he doesn't listen anyways. It's no point wasting time. This is what we would say. No point wasting time. And we will leave that person. But Nuh alayhi salatu wassalam, he did not just invite them once, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times. 950 years. Constantly he is inviting them. Not just 10 years or 15 years, 20 years. 950 years. He's keep on inviting them. He's not giving up. This is a lesson that we can learn here. That when a person is not listening to something good that we were telling him, don't give up. Keep on telling him different methods. Approach him in different ways. Sometimes we have to, for the youngster especially, sometimes we have to keep a basketball game to call the youth, or else they don't come to the masjid. We tell them, there's a basketball game. You will have pizza, we'll have candies. So we call them different. So inviting the people in different ways, but not giving up. Never give up. This is the lesson that we learned from Nuh alayhi salam, that he kept on inviting, kept on inviting. Finally, after 950 years, this is a long time, 950 years, he finally made dua, Ya Allah, Rabbi la tadhar ala al-ardi min al-kafirina dayyara, O my Rabb, because he's so upset now, he's so disappointed. Not upset, but he's so disappointed. And when a person talks to someone for some days, some weeks, he realizes that these people are not understanding, they're not going to listen. So finally, after 950 years, Nuh alayhi salam realized that these people are not going to listen, they're not going to convert. So he said, Ya Rab, la tadhar ala al-ardi min al-kafirin dayyara, don't leave a single kafir on this earth. He's making dua, Ya Allah, destroy all the kuffar. Don't leave a single kafir on the surface of this earth. And then he says, إِنَّكَ إِن تَذَرْهُمْ يُضِلُّوا عِبَادَكَ وَلَا يَلِدُوا إِلَّا فَاجِرًا كَفَّارًا. If you allow them to live, they will misguide the other servants of yours, those who are on the right path. Those kuffar will take these Muslims away from their path too. And وَلَا يَلِدُوا إِلَّا فَاجِرًا كَفَّارًا. These kuffar will only increase in more in kuffar. Whenever they have children, or more kuffar are just increasing. So Ya Allah, these people's being alive, there is no benefit. And he made dua, Ya Allah, destroy all of these kuffar. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, at that time, he sent a revelation to Nuh alayhi salam, and he said, وَأُوحِيَ إِلَى نُوحٍ أَنَّهُ لَن يُؤْمِنَ مِنْ قَوْمِكَ إِلَّا مَنْ قَدْ آمَنَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent a wahi to Nuh alayhi salam, that no one from your nation will accept iman anymore. Whoever has accepted, they have accepted. There is not a single person from now on will accept iman. إِلَّا مَنْ قَدْ آمَنَ, except for those who have already accepted iman. فَلَا تَبْتَئِسْ بِمَا كَانُوا يَفْعَلُونَ. So don't be disappointed from what these kuffar are doing. They have been destined that they're not accepting. So now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells Nuh alayhi salam, he commands Nuh alayhi salam of a unique command, a unique order, and that is وَاصْنَعِ الْفُلْكِ. O Nuh, build a ship. Build a ship. بِأَعْيُنِنَا وَوَحْيِنَا. In our supervision and with our instructions. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, scholars mention that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam to Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam to teach him how to make a ship. Because at that point, there was no ships. This was the first time ever. So he needed someone to teach him how to make a ship. So you're telling him to make a ship, but how do you make a ship? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Jibreel alayhi salam to teach him how to make a ship. And the scholars mention that this process of making a ship took hundreds of years, because this ship was made out of wood. There was no wood that was available to them. So Jibreel alayhi salam first instructed him step by step that first, grow a tree. And when that tree became big, then they cut it into pieces and they made. So step by step, Jibreel alayhi salam taught Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam how to build a ship. This ship, the size of this, many scholars have mentioned different sizes, but the majority of the scholars mentioned that the size of this ship was in length, it was 300 feet long, about 50 feet wide, and 30 feet in height. And it had 3 floors. Again, these are the historians that have mentioned. So this is not like something that we have to believe in. This is history, and this is the opinions of the historians. There were 3 floors in that ship. And the first floor, Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam placed all the land animals on the bottom floor. On the second floor, the middle floor, the human beings were placed. And at that time, there were 80 people who were believers, who were mu'min. So all the believers were put on the second floor, which were about 80 people. And on the third floor, the top floor, were all the birds, all the flying animals. when Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam was building this ship, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions about something about it too, and He says, وَيَصْنَعُ الْفُلْكَ وَكُلَّمَا مَرَّ عَلَيْهِ مَلَأٌ مِّن قَوْمِهِ سَخِرُوا مِنْهُ. That while Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam was building this ship, because it was on land, it was in a desert, it was on land, people that were passing by, they would make fun of Nuh alayhi salam and his people that look at him, look at his people, they're insane, they're making a ship on the land. What is this going to do in this land? There's no water even close to this place. And they would just keep on making fun every time they would pass by. But Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam would just respond by saying that you just wait and see. Finally, after the ship was built and everyone that was supposed to be on that ship was already on the ship, now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down the water. How did this water come? Some ayahs mention that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered the earth to open up and gush out the water. So all the fountains, the wells, they were all gushing out water. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered the heavens, the sky, the clouds to send the rain. So the water is coming from the top and it's constantly raining, and the water is coming from the ground. Both sides the water is coming, and it constantly what the water was coming until it was at a point where the people were starting to drown. And as one hadith mentions, that everyone that was on the surface of this earth, everyone, whether they were human beings, whether they were animals, any living being, everyone, everything, every living being drowned. There's a hadith that mentions that if anyone would have survived this flood, it would have been لَنَجَتْ أُمُّ الصَّبِي. There's an incident mentioned in the hadith about a mother of a child, that if anyone was protected from that flood, it would have been the mother of one child. And the incident about that in a hadith is mentioned that there was a woman who was carrying her child, an infant, and when the water was getting higher, she picked up her child and started to go to a higher place. When the water was getting higher and it got to where she was, she started to climb a hill. And then when the water got there, she went to a bigger hill, and she went to a mountain, and she kept on getting higher and higher, and the water was keep on getting to where at the level she was. Finally, she climbed a huge mountain, and water finally it got over there also. And then she picked up her son, so the water does not touch the son, but she herself drowned, and when she drowned, the son drowned. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions that if anyone would have survived that flood, it would have been this mother of this child, that she tried so hard to protect herself from that flood, from that water. You know, amazingly, the historians mention that the first out of the flying birds that were on the third floor, the first bird to get on to the ship was a parrot. There are different birds. There's crow, there's pigeons, so the first bird that got on was a parrot, and this shows us that smartness of a parrot, that is very sharp and smart, that it knew what is coming, and it knew it had to follow the command of Nuh alayhi salam, so it quickly came because it was smart compared to all the other flying birds. And the last land animal to get on the ship was a donkey. Donkey was the last animal to get on to the ship. Anyways, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded Nuh alayhi salam, قُلْ نَحْمِلْ فِيهَا مِنْ كُلِّ زَوْجَيْنِ اثْنَيْنِ وَأَهْلَكَ إِلَّا مَنْ سَبَقَ عَلَيْهِ الْقَوْلُ وَمَنْ آمَنَ. That, O Nuh, put on this ship every living being in pairs. So animals, male and female, and وَأَهْلَكَ, and your family. Just remember this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling Nuh alayhi salam that take your family also on this ship. Except who cannot be on this ship? إِلَّا مَنْ سَبَقَ عَلَيْهِ الْقَوْلِ, except for those whom I have already told you about. Those who are not Muslims, who are not believers from your family, they will not get onto the boat, onto the ship. So Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam, he took his entire family. And as we know, while Nuh alayhi salam was on the ship, he saw one of his sons. He had many children. Some had passed away before the flood came. At this time, there were 4 of his sons that were alive. 3 of the sons were believers, so they had gotten on the ship. 1 of the sons was not a believer. The 3 that were believers is good so that we know those names. The 3 that were Muslims, that were believers, they were Ham, Sam, and Yafith. Sam, Ham, and Yafith. Why is it important to remember these names? It's because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, another place, another ayah, He mentions, وَجَعَلْنَا ذُرِّيَّتَهُ هُمُ الْبَاقِينَ, that all the people that are alive today in this world are the children of these 3 sons. Everyone that we are all from one of these sons. Everyone that is in this, all the human beings that are alive are from the 3 children of Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam, Ham, Sam, and Yafith. And Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam had 2 wives. One was a kafir, she drowned, and the other one was a Muslim who was a believer. She got on the ship and she was saved. So, like I mentioned, out of the 4 children of Nuh alayhi salam at that time, 3 were Muslims that were on the ship. There was a 4th son, who was not a believer, so he was not on the ship. When the flood started to come, Nuh alayhi salam called his son. He saw his son. He was in the water and he was soon going to drown. So he said, وَنَادَى نُوحٌ ابْنَهُ وَكَانَ فِي مَعْزِلٍ يَا بُنَيَّ ارْكَبْ مَعَنَا وَلَا تَكُنْ مَعَ الْكَافِرِينَ. Nuh alayhi salam yelled, he screamed at his son that was out of the ship, that, "Oh my son, get on this ship, come on this ship, and don't be with the kuffar." What did the son respond? What did the son say? قَالَ سَآوِي إِلَى جَبَلٍ يَعْصِمُنِي مِنَ الْمَاءِ. When a person, he is not a believer, he feels that I can protect myself, my wealth, my house, my strength will protect me. قَالَ سَآوِي إِلَى جَبَلٍ يَعْصِمُنِي مِنَ الْمَاءِ. The son said, he's saying it to his father, "Oh my father, don't worry. I will get on this mountain and I will be protected. سَآوِي إِلَى جَبَلٍ يَعْصِمُنِي مِنَ الْمَاءِ. I will just get on the mountain and it will protect me." Nuh alayhi salam said, "لَا عَاصِمَ الْيَوْمَ مِنْ أَمْرِ اللَّهِ إِلَّا مَنْ رَحِمَ." That there is no protector today from this order of Allah except whom Allah has mercy on. No one will be protected. And then while they were having this conversation, Nuh alayhi salam is begging him to come on, and he is refusing to get on. Imagine this scenario, the situation. The father and the son are having this conversation, and the son is not getting on, he's not listening. While they're having this conversation, وَحَالَ بَيْنَهُمَا الْمَوْجُ فَكَانَ مِنَ الْمُغْرَقِينَ. A strong wave comes, and the wave takes away his son, and the son drowns. فَكَانَ مِنَ الْمُغْرَقِينَ. After the son drowned, Nuh alayhi salam, he then asks Allah, he turns to Allah and he says, وَنَادَى نُوحُ الرَّبَّ فَقَالَ رَبِّ إِنَّ ابْنِي مِنْ أَهْلِي. Nuh alayhi salam is saying, "Oh my Rabb, my son is part of my family. وَإِنَّ وَعْدَكَ الْحَقِّ, and your promise is truth. You told me that you will protect my family." As we learned this previously in the few ayahs before, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, "Take your family on the ship." So Nuh alayhi salam is saying, Ya Allah, my son is part of my family and your promise is true. وَأَنْتَ أَحْكَمُ الْحَاكِمِينَ, and you are the most just out of all the just people. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then responds and He says, قَالَ يَا نُوحُ إِنَّهُ لَيْسَ مِنْ أَهْلِكَ. O Nuh, he is not part of your family. This tells us another lesson here. And that is, those who are kuffar, disbelievers, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not even consider those to be part of the family of the prophets. So, in order to be in part of the family, you have to be a believer. إِنَّهُ لَيْسَ مِنْ أَهْلِكَ. He's not your family. He's not a Muslim, he's not your family. إِنَّهُ عَمَلٌ غَيْرُ صَالِحٌ. His actions, his deeds were not perfect, were not good. فَلَا تَسْأَلْنِي مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٌ. So don't ask me, don't question me about the things that you have no knowledge about. Anyways, Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam realized that he made a mistake, and he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for something that he was not supposed to ask. So he asked for forgiveness. رَبِّ إِنِّي أَعُوذُ بِكَ أَنْ أَسْأَلَكَ مَا لَيْسَ لِي بِهِ عِلْمٌ. Ya Allah, I seek protection from asking you from those things, about those things that I have no knowledge about. And then this incident continues. It's inshallah in 2-3 minutes, inshallah, we can finish it up. When Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam, he finally he was on the ship, and the scholars mentioned that he was on the ship for about 150 days. 150 days. And for this much time, there's water, there's flood, and Nuh alayhi salam and his people were not able to get off the ship. Finally, after about 150 days, Nuh alayhi salam sends a crow to go and fly around and see the situation. See if there's any water left over, if everything has dried up, and look at the situation. The historians mention that this crow, when it went to look around, it saw some food, and it started to eat that food, and it forgot about why it was sent and what it had to do. And it never returned back. And then Nuh alayhi salam then sent a pigeon, kabutar, a pigeon, to go look around, and it came back with a piece of stone, a piece of wood, a dried piece of wood, showing to Nuh alayhi salam, look, this is dry, which was a sign that the water has all dried everywhere. There's no more water. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then sent a revelation to Nuh alayhi salam, and he said, in fact, he sent the revelation first to the earth. وَقِيلَ يَا أَرْضُ ابْلَعِي مَاءَكَ وَيَا سَمَاءُ أَقْلِعِي. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded the earth that swallow all the water. And he commanded the heavens, the clouds, أَقْلِعِي, that hold your water. Don't send no more water. وَغِيضَ الْمَاءُ. All the water start disappearing. وَقُضِيَ الْأَمْرُ وَاسْتَوَتْ عَلَى الْجُودِي. And then the ship stationed on the mountain of Judi. And even nowadays, the historians, they mention that on this mountain of Judi, there is some signs of that ship still present. Allahu Alam, if it is the same one or not, but they say that there are some signs, there's some indication to that ship there. Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam, he's known as Adam al-Asghar, a smaller Adam. Adam alayhi salam, because all the children are from Adam alayhi salam, and then when the flood came, everyone drowned, and the humankind, the human beings continued from the children of Nuh alayhi salam. So Nuh alayhi salam is also the father of all the human beings. Finally, the last thing, where is Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam buried? Where did he pass away? Majority of the scholars are of the opinion that he passed away in Makkah Mukarramah, and he is buried somewhere around the Kaaba. And in fact, there's some ahadith that indicate to that there are many anbiya, thousands of anbiya buried in that area around the Kaaba. There is no indication, so of course, there's nothing that we can do. We're not, inshallah, stepping on any grave. We don't know any, there's no signs or anything. But these are historians that mention that around the Kaaba, these prophets, Nuh alayhi salam and other prophets, were buried. And some say that he was buried in Lebanon. There's both opinions. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.